Hi there, this is Sifu Slim, and I'm coming to you live, interrupting a morning workout with an important message about fight, flight, and freeze response, the systemic reaction, neurological, physiological, biochemical reaction. There's the sun coming up in the distance, and here's somebody out cycling. It's really good news. So a runner just went by, bright and early, way before breakfast currently. And here's a horse getting ready for his day of taking riders out. Hello there. And here's another horse. Hello there. Say hi. Say hi. So horses are known for the fight, flight, and freeze response. And they have a problem when there are carnivores in the area, other horses, other animals they can smell. If you watch a certain episode on Alaska, the Last Frontier, you'll see an episode where they had to shoot a few wolves out in the outback in Alaska, and they were eating their cattle. And when they killed the wolves, they wanted to dispose of them down in the fast-flowing river, and they had to put blinders on the horse in order to have them not panic when they put the wolves on the back of, behind the saddle. I saw that and I was amazed by all of that. So we know that horses have this response, but other animals and humans also have this response. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I jotted down here. It's a biochemical and physiological systemic reaction that comes from an evolutionary progression related to our survival and the animal survival. You have a perception of a fear or stress, and that's in an animal or another human, or we see another animal or another human, or we fall into a river, or it could be the beginning of an avalanche, and the sensory nerve cells in the hypothalamus in our brain, very close to the pituitary gland in our brain, fire. And so the hypothalamus sends a signal via the bloodstream to the pituitary gland and to through the nervous system. Both of these internal paths run to the adrenal gland, which is a gland that sits atop the kidneys. Our blood pressure increases, energy increases due to epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and glucose production, and that's released into the bloodstream. There's also the suppression of the immune system. So I thought about that, and I haven't read that part yet about the suppression of the immune system, and my thought is that it must come. Beautiful home in the background, a barn. I love this color, yellow. And so that must come, the suppression of the immune system, in my guesstimation, from the idea of shutting down the parts of the physiology that are not important to us during that very important pivotal time of fight, flight, and freeze. So I was thinking about this and thinking about my path as a martial artist for, large parts of my life involved in martial arts, many different martial arts. Currently, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I began in '97 in Sacramento, California. Loved it. Thank you all the people who taught and shared with me their wisdom and time in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community. Really appreciate it. But I thought about that, and then the meditative side of wellness and the peaceful side. Jiu-Jitsu is the gentle art. So, you try to defend yourself and submit your opponent or control your opponent without doing any permanent damage to them. So that's the nice part about Jiu-Jitsu. So I was thinking about the learning process, and having spent a lot of time in the education process for myself and as an educator, I thought about how we handle the learning. So if you just take the example of the biochemistry regarding the fight, flight, or freeze response in school, in junior high and high school, and then college, you're handed a large textbook, often another book that would be a compendium to that or a workbook, and then endless photocopies of things that we're supposed, sheets that we're supposed to be reading, answering questions related to that, questions at the end of chapters, and videos and experiments, all this kind of stuff. We're bombarded with information. Education is a very new process, so it didn't start just recently. It goes back to warring people. So the first types of sedentary education, and I'm the author of Sedentary Nation. I hope you'll take a look at that. That was 5 years in the research and writing and editing process, trying to get it to the best I could in that time period. Finished it very quickly in 2 years, but writing is rewriting. But anyway, I hope you can take a look at Sedentary Nation. It's available on Amazon and via my website, sedentarynation.com. But I studied the origins of sitting. And the origins of sitting with groups of people go back first to warrior training, and second to religious training. Those are the first times in a school-type learning environment, or a sedentary sitting learning environment, that I was able to find. And later, we developed the modern education system, but it did come out of warrior training and religious training, to become pastors, priests, monks, etc. So that was where the sedentary learning came about. And do I think this is good? Well, if you look at the history of hunting and gathering people, you're learning hunting by moving and, maybe a talk around the campfire or sitting on a log somewhere. You might get some lessons, but most of it, you're tracking animals and you're learning how to fashion bows and make spears. You're not spending too much time with no movement. If you're sitting, you're working on something with your hands. You're building arrowheads, fashioning arrowheads, those types of things. And with farming, you're out here on the field and you're digging, you're planting, you're weeding, you're forming a plant, you're staking a plant, all those types of things. So you're not sedentary. The sedentary behavior came about in the modern era. So what I'm suggesting is that we're not doing education the right way when it comes to learning about how to incorporate mindfulness and balance and the proper responses and awareness to our fight, flight, and freeze response. So how should we do it? Well, what we should do is take people to natural settings, grounded to the earth, which means, you have your feet barefoot whenever possible, so you're grounded to the earth and you're touching it. So even here, I can take off my flip-flops and I can get grounded to the earth just by touching. So I'm getting the voltage from the earth that's permeating my system. So whenever possible, go barefoot. So do your walks barefoot as much as possible. Do your runs barefoot when it's physiologically appropriate for you. Be on the beach, be on grass, in the water, in a lake, natural setting, even concrete. You're still grounded to the earth. When you're on wood, when you're on rubber, and you're up on a carpet, etc., you're not grounded to the earth. This beautiful horse over here, the braids. See if he comes out, takes another look at me. And so the education process. So how do we deal with the education of horses? Well, we work at them in a somewhat natural setting, not being sedentary, and we work with them so that they trust us and they understand if we're working with them as a job for riding or for herding or whatever we're doing with horses, hunting. We're working with them to get them to perform the task that they're capable of performing. And I'm not suggesting the way we do everything with horses, like the Lipizzan or stallions, getting them to walk in a very strange way, or using our boots and our the spike on the back of the boots. I'm not thinking of is it not called a cleat? Can't think of it. A spur. We're not using our spur to get them to rear up and those types of things, which are not good for the animal. But what I'm suggesting that we do with students is we get them out to a natural setting, and this is students of any age, and you work with them and you work with acting skills. So you're learning, one person is doing the fight, flight, or freeze response, acting it out, and then you are watching this and you're learning about how to respond to that and what you can do with mindfulness and breath. And you work with it. Using your diaphragmatic breathing, the yoga type breathing. In, filling up the diaphragm, and then breathing out. So you learn about breathing, you learn about the relaxation response, you learn about tapping, you learn about how your adrenal glands work, you learn about walking away, how many fights and disputes and heightened states of reaction could we have just gotten up and walked away and let the body have calmed down, just walking away. I mean, how simple is that? Do we teach students that as much as we should? And my estimation is no, we do not teach students that as much as we should. We do too much bombardment of information. And this goes back to that sedentary learning of huge texts like the Bible, like the Quran, the book of Abraham. All these books were so hard to understand for any society, written in any language, just so hard, whereas learning about breathing, mindfulness, awareness, and walking away can be done very easily. And it has to be done regularly. So if you go back to that famous show from the 60s and 70s, the Brady Bunch, how often did the Bradys have that family sit down with Tom leading the discussion normally, but everybody else being able to chime in? It wasn't once a year, it was on a regular basis. And I suggest as a tribe or a band of people, we would have done that at every meal. We would have talked about the day, we could have been lighthearted, we could have been serious, whatever the emotion of the moment, we could have been there. But the goal was to enjoy life, experience life, and learn from our experiences. So education, the way we do it, I was in education for a long time. When I was in it, even in the early 2000s, the textbooks and a lot of the curriculum was based on the 1970s in America. Old school Texas companies, Texas controlling, conservative approach, religious Christian approach, and the family values that they came with, often tense, often not very good at self-expression, often shaming people, and often bombarding them with information, and anything that came from the East-West philosophy, like the east of the yoga, India, Buddhism, and many countries in Buddhism, and all these types of things were found to be, near blasphemy in these spiritual paths, the Judeo-Christian, especially the Christian side, and especially in the last 1,000 years. So what I'm suggesting is we take the simple approach, just like we train a horse. And this horse is freaking out right now. So you can see, a tense situation with this horse. It may be wired like that normally, or it may be my presence. I don't know. I think this horse is different because the other ones I saw were not doing that. But anyway, maybe the horse is just anxious to get out and run in the fields with the other ones. So I'm suggesting that you take a look at sedentarynation.com. You read about the sedentary lifestyle and what we can do to overcome that. And you get out in nature, you get grounded to the earth, and you spend time slowly learning how to handle your awareness around the fight, flight, or freeze response, and learning how to overcome that. Guten Morgen. And then you learn about all these wonderful things, and you get out and you enjoy life. So there it is from South of Austria. Wishing you all the best in your health, happiness, and wellness. Please like, please subscribe, and leave your respectful and helpful comments below. I'm Sifu Slim, Sifu Slim wishing you all the best. Aloha.